One morning at Tesla's headquarters, everything seemed ordinary. Employees roamed the office corridors, getting ready for the hustle and bustle of a new week. That day, however, things were going a little differently in Tesla's human resources department. Among the dozens of candidates who had applied for the company's job postings, a few had been called in for an interview for a special position. The details of the position were not disclosed, only that it was an opportunity to join a senior innovation team. What was interesting was that no one had any idea about the interviewer as much as the interviewees. When the elevator doors opened, in walked a middle-aged man who looked a little too excited for an ordinary job application. He was wearing a simple t-shirt, jeans and an old backpack. His hair was slightly disheveled and he had a light beard. He was so ordinary that no one realized who he was. But this man was not ordinary. This man was Elon Musk himself. One of the richest people in the world, Musk was the founder of revolutionary companies like Tesla, SpaceX and Neuralink. But today, he was just a candidate. Elon knew that the best way to find out what people really think is to get lost among them. That's why he decided to test Tesla's hiring process himself. He wanted to get a deeper understanding of the company culture in terms of the approach of employees during the interview process, their level of professionalism and their attitude towards candidates. But this wasn't just an audit. Elon had a bigger goal in mind. To understand whether a true leader is valued, even when he hides his identity. When he entered the interview room, he was greeted by a young HR specialist who looked Elon up and down. He didn't seem to take Elon's old t-shirt and slightly tired face seriously. The interview started with a few classic formalities, but gradually took an interesting turn. While Elon acted like an ordinary candidate, giving intelligent but modest answers, the interviewer's attitude gradually changed. At first there was a slight sneer. But as Elon's knowledge of technology and innovation grew, the mood in the room changed completely. Before Elon's true identity was revealed, this interview was not just a hiring process, but the beginning of a social experiment. And what was the outcome going to be? No one was prepared for what would happen at the end of the interview. Elon Musk's calm and casual demeanor in the interview didn't initially catch the attention of Mark, a human resources specialist. Mark had evaluated many applicants before and saw no reason to think that he was any different. Elon kept his conversation simple, was a little hesitant at times, and took care to appear like an ordinary candidate. But as he answered each question, Mark's mind slowly began to form question marks in his mind. When Mark asked, "So, have you ever been in a leadership position?" Elon smiled and replied, "Yes, I led a small team. We were focusing on developing new technologies." This statement was both humble and thought-provoking. The confidence in Elon's tone suggested that there was something behind the seeming simplicity of what he was saying. Mark then decided to ask a few technical questions. "What do you think about sustainable energy sources?" Elon began a long explanation. He went into detail about the efficiency of electrical energy, the importance of battery technologies and how to optimize energy consumption worldwide. Mark's expression quickly changed. Here was an expert with a deep understanding of his subject, and his explanation made it clear that this was no ordinary applicant. But Mark still hadn't realized who Elon was. Elon's intelligence and knowledge began to surprise not only Mark, but also several other interviewers in the room. But it was also clear that some were growing impatient. One of them, who was watching the interview, felt that Elon was a waste of time because of his simple clothes and casual demeanor. "We'd better move on to the next island," he whispered to Mark. When this comment reached Elon's ears, he could only smile slightly. Mark, however, was impressed by Elon's words and wanted to deepen the conversation. "So, why did you apply for this job? What does working at Tesla mean to you?" he asked. Elon briefly glanced around the room and then answered, "For me, Tesla is not just a company, it's a vision of the future. I want to be part of working here to help humanity achieve a sustainable future." Mark was touched by these words, but the other officials still seemed to be dismissive of what Elon had said. One of them sarcastically asked, "The vision for the future is good, but for a leadership position you come in a t-shirt and jeans?" There was a brief silence in the room. Elon did not respond to these words, but this silence was like the calm before the storm. Because what was about to happen next would radically change the perspective of everyone in the room. Elon's silence made the air in the room tense. For a few seconds everyone looked at each other. No one knew what to say. Mark nodded, a little uncomfortable, but the other officers still had many questions about Elon's casual attire and his silence in the face of sarcasm. Just then, Mark's phone rang. When he picked it up, a notification from Tesla appeared on the screen. Mark glanced at his screen to read the message. His eyes widened because Elon Musk's name was on the screen and the text below it was quite striking. "This is Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla." At that moment everything became clear. Mark turned his head and looked at Elon with a look of shock in his eyes. The other staff also seemed to realize something now. With his ordinary appearance, Elon hid the fact that he was a genius, that he was the head of the company. At that moment, an awkward silence fell over everyone. "Elon Musk, is that you?" Mark asked, his eyes shining with surprise. Elon smiled, bowed his head slightly and said, "Yes, that's right." Mark felt a regret that he hadn't expected. He felt humiliated that he hadn't been able to put his glasses back on sooner and have a better attitude towards Elon. At that moment, Elon continued his speech. "I want to say something personal to you, and that is to remember that the clothes we wear or the way we look don't determine how much great things we can accomplish. True leadership is not just about looking great in people's eyes, it's about how you can change their lives by doing the right things." The other officials were both in awe and embarrassed by Elon's words. Elon's humble approach as a leader had been a great lesson for them. Mark took a deep breath and pulled himself together. In that moment, Elon's power and leadership went far beyond the t-shirt and jeans he was wearing. Leaving the room, Elon had simply introduced himself, but had delivered the most important message. Real power comes from the work you do, not the way you look. And in that moment, everyone in the room understood exactly how valuable that lesson was.